What if I told you Hollywood's golden couple had a secret so deep it almost ended both their careers? Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas weren't just co-stars. They were caught in a hidden love story that powerful people tried to erase. Lies, control, and a truth buried behind fame. This is the scandal they never wanted the world to know. It began with whispers, the kind that echo through Hollywood faster than any breaking headline. A few hushed words on a movie set, a subtle glance caught by a camera lens, and suddenly, the city of stars had a new mystery to chase. Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas. Two names that barely needed an introduction. Tom, the man who redefined action cinema, a living legend whose dedication to every film became part of his myth. Ana, the stunning Cuban actress who had recently taken Hollywood by storm with her charm, elegance, and magnetic screen presence. At first, no one expected their worlds to collide beyond the professional line. She was the new face of Hollywood, rising fast with performances that spoke louder than any rumor. He was the seasoned superstar, respected, disciplined, and often surrounded by an aura of mystery. But fate, as always, had its own script. They met during the early production of a high-profile film. Long hours, demanding shoots, and shared creative energy brought them close. What started as friendly admiration slowly transformed into an invisible thread connecting them both. There was an ease between them that caught attention, laughter between takes, quiet talks during breaks, and a chemistry so natural it didn't need dialogue to be noticed. People on set began to whisper, "There's something there." The crew noticed first, then the producers, and soon a few tabloid reporters caught on too. But Tom and Ana, both veterans in handling fame, knew exactly how to keep things private. They were careful, almost professional in public, never giving the media what it wanted. Every photograph, every interview, every appearance was measured. No hand-holding, no open affection. Just two stars doing their job, or so it seemed. Behind closed doors, though, things were different. According to a few insiders, Tom was captivated by Ana's authenticity. She wasn't playing games, and she wasn't chasing headlines. In an industry obsessed with fame, she stayed grounded, kind, and focused on her craft. That realness pulled him in. Ana, too, admired Tom's passion. His energy on set was contagious, the kind of drive that pushed everyone to do better. He was generous, funny in his own serious way, and surprisingly attentive. And so, a quiet connection began to bloom. One that neither of them planned, but both found impossible to ignore. Still, Hollywood isn't kind to secrets. The media lives for the unseen, the unspoken. And when whispers turned into speculation, both stars found themselves at the center of a storm they didn't want. Their teams, aware of the growing rumors, stepped in fast. Publicists started crafting explanations. "They're just close friends," one insider said. "They respect each other as professionals." Another claimed, "It's all part of the movie's promotion." But anyone who had seen them together knew there was something more. A spark, a sense of comfort that couldn't be faked for the cameras. As weeks turned into months, their connection deepened. Tom began inviting Ana to private gatherings, small dinners away from the spotlight. She, in return, shared stories from her early days in Cuba, her struggles, her dreams. He listened, really listened, something rare in a man who had spent decades surrounded by noise and fame. Hollywood had seen many on-screen romances turn into off-screen love, but this one was different. It wasn't built on publicity or convenience. It was quiet, intentional, almost sacred. And maybe that's why it became so dangerous, because in a world where every secret eventually becomes a headline, theirs was the one story no one was supposed to discover. The tension grew as the film's release date neared. More cameras, more questions, more pressure. The chemistry that had made their scenes powerful now drew suspicion from every corner. And when the first paparazzi photo of them together leaked, just a casual walk after dinner, the internet exploded. Fans couldn't stop talking. Were they really together? Was it love or just a Hollywood illusion? Neither Tom nor Ana confirmed anything. They simply carried on, pretending nothing had changed. But for those who had seen their eyes meet, who had felt the unspoken connection between them, the truth was already out. It was no longer just a rumor. It was a story, one that Hollywood tried hard to bury, but the world refused to ignore. Behind the cameras, away from the red carpets and flashing lights, something subtle but undeniable began to unfold. Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas, two professionals from different worlds, found themselves drawn together in ways neither had planned. Their days were filled with long hours of filming, rehearsals that stretched into the night, retakes under hot studio lights. But somewhere between the lines of the script and the pauses between scenes, something real started to form. A quiet understanding, a connection that didn't need words. Tom, who had spent decades mastering control of his career, his image, his emotions, started to change. Crew members noticed it first. He laughed more, stayed on set even after his scenes wrapped, and often looked toward Ana when she spoke. As if the rest of the world faded into silence, Ana, on the other hand, carried herself differently too. Known for her calm and reserved nature, she began to glow with a quiet joy. She'd arrive early, stay late, and during breaks, she and Tom would sit together, sometimes talking, sometimes just sharing comfortable silence. It was small things at first. A shared coffee between takes, a handwritten note on her script, a knowing smile across the room. But in the world of Hollywood, small things speak loudly. People began to notice the warmth between them, the kind that can't be scripted or faked. One crew member later described it best. It wasn't the typical Hollywood flirtation. There was respect there, real respect. Tom had seen many co-stars come and go, but Ana was different. She wasn't caught up in fame or the glamorous life that surrounded her. She was grounded, focused, and carried a sincerity that Hollywood rarely sees. That honesty fascinated him. Ana, too, saw something beyond the celebrity. She saw the man behind the superstar, someone driven by passion, but also lonely in his perfection. He was disciplined, almost to a fault, but when he spoke to her, his walls softened. He'd tell her stories from his early days, the struggles before fame, and the lessons he'd learned about trust and loyalty. Their bond deepened with every passing week. Soon dinners after shoots became routine. Sometimes they'd dine with a small group, other times just the two of them, tucked away in quiet restaurants where cameras rarely reached. They shared laughter, secrets, and dreams, pieces of themselves they didn't share with anyone else. Tom found comfort in her simplicity. Ana found strength in his confidence. Together they created a space that felt separate from the chaos of Hollywood, almost like a small, invisible world built just for two. But even in silence, fame has eyes. Their growing closeness didn't go unnoticed. A few whispers reached the tabloids, though both denied any personal connection. Their publicists kept things under control, labeling their chemistry as professional admiration. Still, those who had worked around them could see the truth. Love, even quiet love, has a way of showing itself. To protect what they had, Tom and Ana became even more careful. No social media hints, no shared appearances. Every moment together was planned with precision. Dinners at private residences, weekend escapes to secluded spots, and messages exchanged only through trusted friends. They knew what was at stake. In an industry where rumors can destroy careers and privacy is a luxury, keeping their relationship hidden became both a necessity and a burden. Yet somehow, that secrecy made their bond even stronger. Love, when hidden, often grows deeper, like roots under the surface. But it also grows fragile, because love that can't breathe eventually starts to suffocate. And soon, the rhythm that once connected them, those quiet dinners, the late-night talks, the shared laughter, began to shift. Schedules grew tighter. The distance between them, once emotional protection, started to feel like emotional separation. Ana was rising fast. New projects, new offers, new headlines. Tom was preparing for another massive blockbuster. The same spotlight that had brought them together now began to pull them apart. They didn't fight. They didn't make scenes. They simply started drifting, quietly, almost unknowingly. The world saw nothing. But the silence between them began to speak volumes, and in that silence, both realized something they hadn't before. Even the strongest connection can lose its rhythm when fame, fear, and secrecy begin to lead the dance. Every great love story in Hollywood meets a moment when the spotlight burns too bright. For Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas, that moment came quietly, not with anger, but with distance. At first, everything seemed perfect. They balanced their schedules, found time between shoots, and learned how to exist in a relationship that had to remain invisible. But slowly, the cracks began to show. Anna's career was on fire. Her performance in Knives Out had made her one of Hollywood's most sought-after new faces. Then came No Time to Die, Deep Water, and several other projects that pushed her name to the top of casting lists. Suddenly, she was everywhere. Interviews, red carpets, magazine covers. Her star was rising fast, and the world wanted to know everything about her. Tom, on the other hand, was entering another massive phase of his career. Top Gun. Maverick was in full production, a film that carried not just his reputation, but decades of legacy. He was producing, performing, and managing every detail with his trademark intensity. For him, every movie wasn't just work. It was a mission. The result? Two people who deeply cared for each other were suddenly caught in two very different worlds. Anna's schedule was unpredictable, filled with travel and press events. Tom's life was locked down by security, structure, and discipline. They tried to stay connected through calls and messages, but sometimes even those felt like obligations. The warmth they once shared began to cool, replaced by polite conversations and tired goodbyes. Still, the real tension wasn't just time, it was control. Tom, by nature, was protective, sometimes too much. He had built his entire life around precision and privacy. Every detail, every move, every person in his circle was carefully chosen. It wasn't arrogance, it was habit, a way to survive decades in the public eye. But Anna was different. She valued space, emotional, personal, and creative. She didn't want to be managed or directed outside the film set. She wanted to breathe, to live freely, to walk down a street without cameras following her every step. That difference between structure and freedom slowly grew into a silent wall. In interviews around that time, Anna gave hints without naming names. She said fame made her feel trapped, that constant media attention was exhausting, and that peace mattered more than popularity. Those who knew her well understood what she meant. Being with Tom meant attention, the kind she never wanted. Paparazzi parked outside her home. Tabloids linked her to his past relationships. Every public sighting sparked wild headlines. She felt her name becoming a topic of gossip instead of art. Friends close to Anna noticed her mood changing. She began avoiding Hollywood events, skipping parties, and spending more time alone. She just wanted normalcy, one source said. But being with Tom meant that normal wasn't an option. For Tom, the situation was equally painful. He cared deeply for her and wanted to protect her from the chaos of fame. But in trying to protect her, he unintentionally built barriers. His world was guarded by privacy, NDAs, and routines. Her world thrived on openness and spontaneity. The more he tried to hold things together, the more it slipped away. Rumors soon began to surface. Stories of disagreements, quiet arguments, and long silences between them spread through gossip columns. Neither confirmed anything, but the energy around them had changed. On set, Anna became quieter. Tom threw himself deeper into work. What had once been effortless companionship turned into careful distance. Two people standing close, yet emotionally miles apart. Anna started asking herself hard questions. Was this what she wanted? Could love survive if it meant losing herself? For a woman who had fought hard for her independence, the answer became clearer each day. She realized that no matter how strong the connection, if it comes at the cost of your peace, it's no longer love, it's compromise. And so, even before words were spoken, the inevitable had already begun. Their story, once filled with warmth, laughter, and connection, began to fade into long pauses and unanswered messages. Tom sensed it too, but he wasn't one to beg. He understood that sometimes love isn't enough to bridge two worlds built so differently. By the time their film wrapped up, the emotional distance had already set in. They smiled for the cameras, posed for interviews, and acted like everything was fine. But behind those practiced smiles, something precious had already been lost. That's how it ends in Hollywood. Not with shouting or blame, but with quiet realization. And for Tom and Anna, that realization marked the beginning of the end. The end of Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas's relationship didn't arrive with noise or scandal. It came like a soft whisper. No headlines, no social media posts, and no public confessions. Just quiet distance. the kind of silence that says more than words ever could. For months, they had been balancing two powerful worlds, both filled with cameras, contracts, and constant travel. When their schedules finally began to clash beyond repair, they knew what was coming. It wasn't anger that separated them. It was exhaustion. Sometimes love just can't survive the weight of two different lives moving at full speed. Tom, ever composed and disciplined, accepted it with the kind of calm he was known for. But people close to him said it cut deeper than anyone realized. He had truly admired Anna, her honesty, her grace, and her ability to remain herself in a world that constantly demanded more. For a man surrounded by fame and structure, Anna was a rare breath of authenticity. Anna, meanwhile, respected Tom immensely. She never had a bad word to say about him. But deep down, she knew that their worlds were simply built on different foundations. Tom's life revolved around control, legacy, and the expectations of an empire he had spent decades building. Anna's, in contrast, was about finding balance, peace, privacy, and emotional space to grow. When the decision came, it wasn't a single moment. It was a slow realization. A gradual understanding that love wasn't enough to bridge the difference between structure and freedom. One quiet evening, they had the conversation no couple ever wants to have. There were no raised voices, just a shared understanding that this chapter had reached its end. They agreed to remain friends, at least publicly. And for a while, they kept that promise. No interviews, no explanations, just mutual respect. Tom retreated into his work, diving deep into post-production for Top Gun, Maverick, and new projects lined up across continents. Anna threw herself into acting too, moving from one film set to another, pouring her emotions into every role. But the world, as always, noticed the silence. Fans began speculating when Anna appeared at red carpets alone, when Tom stopped being spotted in the same cities as her. Online threads started connecting dots, analyzing timelines, and comparing interviews. Slowly, the whispers turned into headlines. Even then, neither of them confirmed anything. They didn't owe the world an explanation, and maybe that was their final act of love, protecting what little privacy they had left. They let the story fade naturally, like a candle burning to its end. Those who knew them said it was painful but peaceful. There were no bitter endings, no grudges. Just two people who had shared something real and chose to walk away before it broke them completely. Tom respected her decision to move on quietly. Anna appreciated his maturity in not letting it turn into a public drama. As time passed, their lives diverged completely. Anna became one of Hollywood's most sought-after actresses, proving her strength through her performances in Blonde and beyond. Tom continued to be the unstoppable force of cinema, reminding everyone why he remains one of the most dedicated actors in the world. And yet, those who look closely still see traces of what once was, in a certain look, a certain interview tone, a small pause before a smile. Maybe the world didn't witness their love story in full, but they felt its echoes. Their breakup wasn't about hate or failure. It was about two powerful souls choosing peace over chaos. And in that quiet ending, there was a kind of beauty. The kind that only comes from love that was real, even if it couldn't last. When the silence finally settled, it wasn't filled with bitterness, it was filled with growth. Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas didn't rush to explain, justify, or rekindle anything. They simply stepped back, each moving toward a new version of themselves. What they shared had ended, but what it left behind quietly shaped the next chapters of their lives. Anna threw herself into her art, her next big role. Blonde became one of the most talked about performances of her career. She stepped into the shoes of Marilyn Monroe, not just portraying her, but becoming her. Fragile, powerful, misunderstood. Critics praised her intensity. Audiences connected to her vulnerability. It was more than a film. It was her rebirth. She proved that she didn't need a high-profile relationship to stay in the spotlight. Her craft was enough. Her presence was enough. With every red carpet appearance and interview, Anna began to glow differently. Not as someone's partner, but as her own person. She moved to new cities, embraced simpler routines, and spoke often about peace and balance. To those who followed her story closely, it was clear she had learned something valuable from her time with Tom. That protecting her calm was not selfish. It was survival. Tom, on the other hand, found solace in the one place he always could: his work. For decades, his focus had been his anchor, and now it became his healing ground. Top Gun. Maverick wasn't just another movie for him. It was personal, almost symbolic. The film's success became a reminder of his timeless drive, his refusal to fade, and his deep love for cinema. It was as if he had poured every unspoken emotion into that project. Discipline, heartbreak, and hope, all woven together into one of the biggest box office triumphs of his career. But beneath the success, those close to Tom noticed a subtle shift. He seemed more reflective, quieter at times. Fame had always been his constant companion, but perhaps he'd begun to understand its limits, that it can bring the world to your feet, but it can't hold your heart steady. Maybe Anna had shown him that, even for someone who could conquer any mission, human connection is the one frontier that can't be controlled. Both learned different lessons from their time together. Anna learned the strength of silence, that not every truth needs to be spoken, and not every love needs to be public to be real. Tom learned that even with all his discipline and drive, there are things in life that can't be scheduled or fixed, that emotion has its own language, and sometimes it speaks through letting go. Their story wasn't one of failure. It was a lesson in timing. Two brilliant lives that crossed paths, learned deeply, and moved forward. They didn't destroy each other. They refined each other. Like two stars that align for a brief moment in the sky, stunning, bright, unforgettable, before drifting apart into their own orbits again. And that's what makes their story so haunting. It wasn't about betrayal or scandal. It was about love that couldn't breathe under the weight of fame, about connection that was too human for the cameras to capture. Even now, fans still wonder, what if? What if they'd met at a different time, in a quieter world, away from flashing lights and endless scripts? Maybe it could have lasted, or maybe it was meant to be exactly what it was, short, intense, and unforgettable. Perhaps the truth they tried to hide wasn't about heartbreak at all. Maybe it was this, that some stories aren't meant to end with a grand conclusion. Some are meant to live quietly in memory. Two people who met, changed each other, and carried that quiet truth with them forever.